I did this little exercise that I found over at Anthony, a Watercolor Affair, that demonstrates lost and found soft and hard edges. And I thought it was a perfect topic vehicle for us to explore this information, and I can share it with you through doing this exercise. I encourage you to check it out. This is a pretty simple cup of coffee, which is really makes it good for showing this demo. I've already done a little bit of a painting to get it going, and starting off with a little cool gray from Daniel Smith, and it starts off looking kind of dark, but as I go out and kind of spread it out a little bit, it won't be quite so dark. And I like this color. It's really a beautiful gray. There's so many grays in the world, and quite often a lot of artists just paint really high chroma values of color, and then everything starts looking very, very oversaturated. So in this case, we're just put the color down, and now I'm drawing out the wash. That's my dog chiming in. Tell you what he thinks of painting. Now we're going to go in with some sepia that I have also added some, and I want a little bit of bleed here. I want it to look a little bled together. This is sepia mixed with yellow ochre. I'm going to leave a little bit of a line here because I don't want those two blending up the back wall of the cup. And as we go, everything is a wash. Everything. So as I go from left to right, I'm going to make it dark to light as I go through my coffee cup. I'm letting this set for just a minute, and then I'm going to come back and soften that edge up a bit, and we're going to see our first lost edge. And in a sense, you could say this is a blended edge, which is something we want. And as I come around here, I'll complete this pretty simple but very gratifying painting. There we go. Looks good. Now, I'm going to go in and I'm going to soften up this little edge of my gray here, because I don't want it to come to an abrupt stop. I want to. Now, if you don't catch this soon enough and you go in and you put a little water on it, you're going to get a bleed. I mean, you're going to get a hard edge right in here. And I may have waited too long. It may still happen, but we'll see what we can get. I'm going to turn my page a little bit. You make use some of the flow of water, and you can see how I can control the wash just by moving my paper around. Alright. So I'm going to go back in and add a little bit more because I want to control this a little bit better. I can still do it as long as it's wet, as long as it's damp. It's a living wash. I want a little bit of a shadow on this side of the coffee. And yeah, there you go. And then I can take this and work it down this way a bit and kind of fix this little problem I had here. So remember, navigating the challenges of watercolor is knowing how to fix something that's not coming out quite right. So I added more water. I blended a little bit more. And this kind of saved me, right? I like that little white line between the coffee and the back wall of the cup. I'm going to leave that the way it is. I like that. I'd like to get it just a little bit darker in here. We might have to wait. We're going to wait until this dries, and then we're going to come back in with another wash over the top of this to better define the surface of the coffee. And we'll do that with a darker color. So now, what's the next step? Let's see. We're going to come over here and we're going to show this lip right here. We want to identify this lip. And don't need a whole lot right here. This is reflective, shadow, light, just showing us where the edge of the coffee cup is. It needs to be blended out really well. So I put some Joseph Sapuchik Cool Gray down from Daniel Smith and blended it up the edge. I'm going to pick this up because I don't like all this really dark pigment that's settled right there. I'm going to let that dry. That's going to be good. And now I'm going to work my way down this side of the cup. I am leaving this open, and this shows a really good example of a lost edge. So we'll show you lost edge, and in a minute we're going to show you found edge. But first we're going to work on this edge of the coffee cup handle. And I just drew this out. And then sometimes, like what we discussed in class, is suggesting something versus spelling it out is always more intriguing to the brain. Oh, there goes Max, complaining about somebody. I might have to stop the video and go talk to Max for a second. He's my studio buddy. And what I'm doing here, where I'm going really slow and I'm dabbing a lot, not the best way of going about painting. I'm trying to be careful, and I want this to come out well. But usually, when you're painting, way better to make long, even strokes than a bunch of short, small ones. The fewer strokes we make, the better. The more interpretive, the less overworked, the less tight it will look. And we want that. We want some artistic impression. Right? We don't just want everything absolutely perfect. Pick that up because I do want the coffee handle to have the right shape. So I'm going to let that set. That's kind of my darkest edge along that side. And this goes counterintuitive to where like you paint darks first and then paint lights later. Or paint lights first, I'm sorry. Light to dark. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to show you how I can... Hold on. Okay. Picking up where we left off after the interruption from Max. Now we're going to keep going. And again, I'm still kind of waiting for this to dry. There's still a little bit of sheen. Still kind of a sheen in here. Still kind of wet. We don't want to mess with that at all. We're going to come up here and work on this lip of the coffee cup and define this edge. And this is the darker side of the coffee cup. So the way we're kind of envisioning this is light is coming from this direction, right? But I'm also, in this case, the only way this works is I'm getting a lot of light from this direction too. So there is some reflective nature to this. I'm going to come up here. Paint that. See how I did that all in one stroke? Way better when you can do that in one stroke. Now, I've got my pigment on. Now I'm going to soften my edges. And I'm going to draw the pigment out that I've already laid down. And it's not quite enough. This is experience and practice that gets you this level. But I don't quite have enough pigment on this. So I'm going to put down a little bit more. I'm going to charge into it a bit. This is charging into a wet wash. I'm adding some more pigment to it, and I'm going to let it kind of work its way out. I am working at an angle, so working at an angle gives you the ability to use gravity, and that is definitely something I'm taking advantage of here. So I'm going to keep coming on down, and I'm going to go all the way to my cookie. And I want this to come on out. And probably went a little too dark there, that's alright. And now I'm going to start blending this out. Oh. There we go. A little more gray in there. A little more of that cool gray, beautiful gray color. Now, encourage it to move a little bit. Come on down here. This is still very wet. Everything I'm working with is still very wet, and I want it really wet. So now I'm putting water in on this side, and I'm going to go back to my wash. And what this will do is it will create a capillary effect that will draw the pigment to it, and it's a great way to finish off a wash. You want clean water if you can get it, so that you're creating the cleanest all the way to white. We want it to go to white. Now we're going to come down here, finish this off. Okay, I've almost got my coffee cup. There's a little bit of a, I want to suggest where my base of my coffee cup is, but I don't want to tell the whole story by making it obvious. I want it to be suggested, not completely spelled out. So I'm just barely going to make that visible. And I'm going to add maybe a little bit more in here. This is between here and here. These are my two darkest spots on my painting so far. There is going to be another dark spot, but I am still charging some pigment into this area. Now I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to charge a little bit more into here. And I want this area here to have some decent pigment in it. And we'll run this up and over like this. I'm putting a little bit more water in here now. I'm kind of pushing some of the pigment back. I want to create kind of a contoured edge. The shadow shows the contour of the cup. So there you go. Looks good. Now I'm going to leave it alone. Less is more in this case. I'll pick up a little pigment right here, and then after it dries I may come back in and add some more pigment, but we'll see how that looks. I'm liking it right now. So again, we're looking at lost edge here, we're looking at a big lost edge here. Let's find an edge. So a found edge is something from behind the object that is darker than the object you're painting. In many cases, this helps give an object dimension. It helps give it depth. And so here we're going to put in a little bit of a found edge, and we're going to do it right along the base of this coffee cup right here. And here we go. Now I don't want this to come all the way down. I'm just going to make it like right here. There we go. I'll bleed that out a little bit. In fact, I don't even want it to go that far. I just really want it to kind of give you that edge of that coffee cup. And now we have ourselves a found edge that helps define where the coffee cup ends and where the table would begin. I want to pick some of this. I don't want that hard edge right there, so I'm coming in to pick it up and put a little bit more. Just clean water. Just want it to bleed out a little bit. All right, we're gonna leave that alone. If anything, I'm gonna pick up a little bit of right there because I want to transition between the two. This is a hard edge, right? Now what I have here is a found edge and a lost edge, right? We also have a blended edge, right? We're gonna work on this a little bit more, but I do want it to be dry before I go any further with that. So now let's let that dry a little bit, and we're gonna go in and we're gonna do our cookies real fast. And cookies are pretty much the same. We're gonna use some sepia, and we're gonna use some yellow ochre. And you can use any brown you want. I'm just using these two because I like the way they combine. And we're going to come in here, we're going to make the top side of our cookie. This is kind of risky. I don't want to get too close to that right now. I'm going to paint down here on this end first, and I'm going to bleed this out a little bit because I don't want it to just sit there and cause a bunch of really hard edges. And okay. So we have some reflective light defining our cookies. And so I'm just putting down almost straight yellow ochre. Kind of used a lot of water and just kind of getting it mixed with my sepia a little bit. Beautiful combination, sepia and yellow ochre. Really, really pretty. I like it a lot. Okay, so brush control, Terry. Brush control. Try to keep control of everything. All right. So I'm going to go in and add some more darks in here because this is where my darks are on this side. And right in here. And a little bit of edge. I want to edge on this side. I'm going to let this dry a little bit before I come back and give it some more definition. Get rid of all the white spots. There's no really hot spots on a cookie. Hot spot would be like something that is really bright. The white of whatever is reflecting the most light would be hot. So kind of leaving that little edge right there for now, because if I touch it, then it'll all the pigment will bleed down, and it's kind of doing it as it is, but that's okay. I'm all right. And then we're going to come up here and we're going to do this cookie. And this is getting dry enough now to where I can touch without losing, without bleeding into one another, which there might be a little bit, and that's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. And now we're going to come down here and do the rest of this cookie. Yes, I touched that one, so now we're all, that's fine. I'm going to let that bleed in here. And now we're coming over here. Now, as you see this vignette, it's floating in space, right? But I need to define where the table is, because otherwise it starts looking kind of odd, and our brains have a hard time interpreting what's happening because there's no cast shadows. There's a little bit of a cast shadow over here. We're gonna fix that here in a minute, but shadows really help sell your contours in every way. All right, we're dry enough up here. We're gonna let this dry. I'm we're going to come up here, and you can see how I kind of rotate around the painting, working on different aspects of it. Now I could also come in here, and I could have done it while it was drying. I didn't, but I could soften up some of these edges. I can also do it right now. I can come in and let's see. I'm going to get a good brush for that. Let's see. Let's pull out my favorite little scrubber brush. It's not little, but so if I want to soften up some edges, I'm just using clear water, nothing more. And you know, this coffee cup, it doesn't have a super sharp edge right there, right? So I can come in here and I can use a little water to soften up that super hard edge. The coffee might have a little bit more of a hard edge, but I can even soften that up just a tad, and it'll sell it a little bit better, right? Now over here, I could come in and clean up every little thing. I'm not worried about it. I'm gonna take that little edge off there, and maybe a little bit down here, but I'm not gonna go crazy. I just touching the edge to kind of help take some of the hardest aspects off on it. All right, so now leave our little brush right there. Now we're going to come in here, and I want to soften up this edge too. So again, we got all these hard edges. So again, I want my brain to have to work to figure this out a little bit. So I'm going to create some soft edges that help make the painting more interesting. We're going to soften up the edge here, and we're going to soften up the edge here. I like that. And we're going to, we could have done that in the painting process, and it would be better if we did, but I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of, oh, didn't wait for it to dry enough, so we're gonna wait for that to dry a little bit, and we'll come back, we'll work on that. In the meantime, I'm gonna come up here, and I'm gonna work right here. But let's see if I can fix this a little bit. So again, dealing with emergencies, that's what John Singer Sargent said about painting watercolor. It's just all emergencies. In that case, I kind of bought it myself. I made the emergency. But we'll fix that. All right. So now we're going to come in here, and we're going to make this a little bit darker over on this side, and we want this shadow inside the coffee cup to sell the cast part of it. So we got a light coming from over here, and this light is washing it. So our light is actually coming from over here. It's kind of backside pushing this way. And so this is where, oh, see, gotta be real careful of that. I stuck my hand in wet paint. And you're getting to see kind of the good, bad, and ugly of painting. All right. So now, come down here. Again, I'm working on this cast shadow. I really didn't want to get into the white. I want to preserve the white. Preserving white, very important, because if I have to lift on this, it's never gonna look as fresh. It's never gonna look as good as if I use just the white of the paper. Not bad. Move that out a little bit. I don't want it to be super white. I want it to be a little bit white. And there we go. Okay. Good deal. Pick up a little yellow. Make that coffee look a little bit more rich and creamy. And again, this is a pretty fun exercise. It's just I'm learning edge control, I'm learning brush control, I'm learning water control, pigment control, all those things. Very important. Come in here, pick some of that up. Okay, so I'm lifting at this point. I'm lifting up some of my pigment that I already put down. And I'm going to come in here and lift up some of my bead to kind of, because I don't want it to dry quite like that. I'm also going to pick up a little bit along here because I want, there we go. Alright, finished on that. Now let's see, I want to get some of that out of there. I don't want that on there. I kind of contaminated my gray with some of my sepia, so I just picked up off of my palette and cleaned out the sepia out of my gray. Alright, so now that we've done that, let's go in here and drop in a shadow. So we've got our light coming from this side. Initially I said it was coming from the other side. I don't know why I said that. I was wrong. But we're going to come in here and create a little bit of a shadow. And we want this to diffuse out pretty quick. A huge cast shadow. But I'm going into my cookie. And I'm going into this cookie. And I'm using both colors of the cookie and the gray to create this shadow. And that's going to create a more believable shadow. Okay. Okay. Still waiting for that to dry off a little bit. We'll fix it. This is a really hard fix, especially in gray and really, really light colors. This is going to be kind of a challenge. I'm picking up, I see a little bit of a backwash edge starting there and I don't want it, so I'm picking it up. Alright, we're going to let this dry for just a minute. Okay, we did a little bit of hair drying and we got this perfectly dry. And I have myself a problem, right? I went in here to soften this edge up. It backwashed into my cup way too much. It lifted some of my wash and my gray. So this is not the effect I want, and it makes it difficult. So I'm going to show you how to fix this. There's probably more than one way to fix it, but I'm going to show you what I would do to fix this. And what it'll probably end up doing is making this a little bit darker than I want it to be. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reactivate the paint that's already there. I have to redo the entire wash, so I'm going to reactivate the paint that's already there. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to add water to the whole area. And and you can see I'm already moving some pigment around. Right? It's already picking up pigment that I've already laid down, which is okay. This is what I want. I need to be able to do this. And so now I got to look for a good spot to kind of cut it off. I'm going to cut it off right there. And look at this. So now I'm re-washing this whole area, and I've essentially moved the pigment. I haven't added any pigment. This is just water. I moved the pigment that was up here, and it's flowing down as I'm adding the water. And this is working to some degree. There's probably going to, and I'm adding a little bit more water as I go, and I'm going to, now I'm going to do it the right way. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to blur that edge a bit. I'm going to come down here, keep coming. I'm gonna go ahead and go into my cookie a bit, which is okay, no problem. And I have a little bit of a line in here that I'm trying to reactivate and make the pigment move around and get rid of that line. I don't want that line. You can still see, and this is the challenge to this. You can still see a bit of the line from the previous pigment. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to charge right from the very top, and I'm kind of reworking this whole wash, and it's quite wet, and I'm coming down here. I'm gonna make this line dark too to kind of help sell this. Okay. Into the area I kind of screwed up, and we're gonna let it go for just a second. Let that water and the miracle of watercolor. I'm gonna move my paper around a little bit. I'm trying to help it. Okay, I want this to fuzz out a bit. I want it to go this way. Adding a little bit more, and see, I've got a little bit of a hard edge over here. I don't want that, so I'm going to come in here with some fresh water. I'm going to lay down fresh water, and I'm going to kind of erase it, pick it up a little bit. So blurred edge. Blur out that edge a bit. Makes it more interesting. Makes the eye work harder, makes the brain work harder to figure everything out. And so in this case, yeah, too dark. We're gonna leave that. These are gonna be chocolate chip cookies, so we're gonna leave that as a chocolate chip. But I wanted to come in here now that I've done that. I'm gonna let it sit. I'm not going to overwork it. I'm going to let it sit. That's probably one of the hardest things to do in watercolor. Is your temptation is, oh, it's not perfect. Let me get in there and mess with it. But the reality is, when it dries, my eye will see it because I know it's there. But the average viewer, I would say the 90 percentile viewer, they're never gonna notice that. If they do, it won't destroy their interpretation of the scene. We're selling them on our vision of what we're looking at. Washes will always flow from from more water to less water. So the pigment will always travel in the direction of where the less water is. So that's why things backwash as they dry. You got to be careful. Kind of liking that effect. We're gonna let that dry before we go in and redefine that edge, because we don't want to mess with this. We like what's going on there now, and we need that to dry. I'm going to get rid of that really high light. I don't want that. And we're going to let this just kind of work its way out. Going in here, making this edge a little bit darker, because this is where my darkest side is. Got a little bit of reflective light. We don't want to lose that. I kind of like it. I'll leave that there. Let that kind of bleed out a little bit. Don't really know where the cookie ends and the shadow begins. And that's more interesting. That's more pleasing to the eye. That's more pleasing to the brain to go, where, there's some mystery there. Let me find it. Let me figure this out. Let me look at it a little bit harder. Let me think about it a little bit more. Now I'm going to come up here. I'm waiting for this to dry a little bit, and see, I jump around, but I'm not quite happy with this wash here. I'm going to mess with it a bit. I'm going to come in here and add a little bit more water and pigment, and I'm going to try and smooth it out just a bit. I like that better. I'm going to leave it alone. Leave it alone. But I am going to come in here and add a little bit more pigment to my coffee line, because I want a little bit more of a line right in here. I'm getting a little bit of a sheen off of this, and it's kind of hard to see, but yeah, there we go. Better. Getting better. Getting better. Alright. I don't like this hard edge right here. I'm going to come in here and clean that up a little bit. Clean that up. Okay. Now we're gonna put a little bit more yellow right here, and then we're gonna let this dry before we do anything else to it. Alright. Now give me a minute. I'm going to use the dryer. And we'll come back at it. Okay. We're completely dry. And now we're going to come in here and we're going to work on more shadows, getting them darker. And we're almost done. We're getting close to the end on this, so I'm pretty happy with the coffee cup. I might tweak an item or two here and there, but really, truly, it's a nice little painting. I need some darker shadows to sell this, so I'm coming in here, and really, truly, I mean, if you want to get technical, I am painting in a found edge at the top of the cookie. And I'm going to blend this up. This out a little bit, and keep going, and now I have to wet the whole thing because it's very hard to paint into a wash. It is one of the hardest things to do and make it look good. So we're going to leave that alone. Let that go. I'm going to pick up a little bit right here, get it off my cookie. We're going to leave that, and we're going to leave it alone. We're going to see how that looks. All right. So I've decided that I don't want super hard shadows, because I'm going to say that we're in some kind of blended light here, or some kind of diffused light, and diffused light does not give you really harsh shadows. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to lift these shadow edges, and I'm going to create a more blended sort of soft shadow, and that helps sell a lot of what we're seeing with all the light reflections on this coffee cup, rather than really harsh lines. we're going with very diffused light, and so we get diffused shadows. And I'm just picking up some of this with the paper towel and making that a little bit softer line. I do want this to be a little bit darker in here, so I'm going to come in and go another layer, make it a little bit darker. Some chocolate chips in there. I like chocolate chip. You could probably hear Max kind of grousing around a little bit. He likes to chirp and make little noises. So what the adding some low lights, some darks on this end, just to sell this. Oh, look at that. See, started with this little capillary thing going. Starts picking it up. It's okay. Paper towel to the rescue. Doing a little bit of lifting here. Just selling the shape a little bit more. Doing a little bit of blotting here. Selling the shape a little bit more. I could keep going, but you know, for a quick little vignette sort of demonstration, this is all we need. We just need that. Don't need a lot more than that. And it tells the story. Right? Now let's see yours. Alright, I've had a lot of fun painting this, and I just wanted to kind of review everything we've looked at here. We're looking at lost edges, right? We're looking at hard edges, right? We're looking at soft edges, and we're looking at found edges. Alright, that kind of covers everything we were after. Hope you enjoyed it.